City Matters.
Hello, and welcome to HMTV's podcast platform. I'm your host, Bernie Furshpan of Ordinary Heroes, right here at the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center. Today I have a very special guest who has done some really incredible things in this local community, but her wisdom and her vision is very global. Let's put it that way. So we're grateful to have her here today, and that is Marsha Silverman, council member of the Glen Cove. Is it a village or city?
City.
The city. Is it one of the largest cities in Long Island, would you say?
Well, there's only 2 cities in Long Island, and we're one of those 2,
right.
Long Beach and us, Glen Cove.
Okay,
Yeah.
Very good. Well, thank you for joining me today, and how are you doing today?
Thank you for having me. Pleasure.
You've been involved in politics, is it since 2017?
Yeah, I first ran in 2017 and have been on the city council since.
What went on in your mind when you were thinking, I think I'm going to go into politics? Very few people do that because there's a lot involved, and you're going to get attacked by some people because politics is about polarity, right? There's one team on this side and one team on that side, and they're always going to be attacking each other.
Yeah, it's funny because I often say, some kids grow up, want to be in politics. They want to be the governor, the president.
Right.
That was not me.
No.
I just, as I started to get involved in Glen Cove and kind of saw what was going on and how the city worked and how the city didn't work for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we could do better. And when I see things like that, I want to help make it better. So I had to get off the sidelines and not complain about it, but do something about it. And that's how I first got involved. Really started helping and getting involved with some other candidates back in 2014, 2015, saw how it worked. And then I said, you know what? I'm going to take the bull by the horns here, and I'm going to go for it.
What really compelled you was fiscal responsibility of the city council, correct? You really kind of spearheaded a transparency of fiscal responsibility in the city council. And did any of this keep you up at night? That's what I want to know.
So, yes, I'll tell you the main thing that has really been troublesome to me is our water supply. And when I got into office, January 1st of 2018, I found out for the first time that out of our 6 water wells in Glen Cove, only 2 were operational. And we were purchasing water from our neighbor in Locust Valley. And we didn't have enough water to supply our residents, our business owners, our businesses, restaurants. And that was very shocking because I would look at the budgets, I'd look at the finances and say, we could do better, we could cut out inefficiencies and just have better operations. But I didn't realize to the extent that our water fund had been depleted and neglected. And so we needed to act pretty swiftly to rebuild a lot of our water infrastructure. And, today, several years later, we have all of 5 out of our 6 wells operational. 1 is down now for further repairs, but we've had all 6 operational since I've gotten on the city council.
Fabulous.
So yeah,
quite a mark.
Yeah, no, that was a big one, but it comes from the finances and making sure that you have money where it needs to be,
right, and
not taking it from one account into another account to spend on things that could be discretionary or wasteful. And as you mentioned, I'm fiscally conservative.
Right.
I have a background in finance. I've worked in the finance sector, in the private sector for over 30 years, doing financial data analytics, and credit, so commercial credit.
You know what to look for.
Yeah. So
see, that helps to have that kind of a degree. My dad was a contractor, so he made me work with him in the summers and sometimes on the weekends. So if I ever have a contractor coming to my house, I know exactly what they're supposed to do. And I know what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong. So it really does help if you're going to get involved in the fiscal aspect that you have that kind of a background.
It does. It helps when you have certain knowledge and then you can apply it. And it also helps to know when you don't have the knowledge so that you can reach out to experts who might be able to help you and understand things. So that's also really critical. Like, I know nothing about a water infrastructure system, how to get water when you turn on the tap.
Learned.
But you learn. You go to the experts who know, so that what do we need to do to make this better? And that's how you get things done.
Which makes me think about all the things you had to learn. So it makes you a better person, more well-rounded, and you can speak to the subject. You must have had an aha moment when you realized that the workers needed to be protected with OSHA compliant regulations. Yep. When did that happen?
So about 2 to 3 years ago, well, I would say since I've been on the city council, I've partnered with a lot of unions, workers, and it's very important to me for the working class family that anybody who goes to work every day should be able to work there safely and come home from work, right? And a couple of years ago, about 2 to 3 years ago, one of the unions reached out to me and said, Glen Cove does not have OSHA compliance in their regulations, where other municipalities were starting to adopt it, and they had some legislation.
They didn't have it.
We did not have it.
Was it a requirement?
No.
State policy?
So there are different aspects of it.
OSHA is federal.
Yes, OSHA is federal, where it's safety.
Right.
So there's different aspects, like our fire department operates under OSHA, our police department, that there are safety measures. But we're talking about on construction sites in Glen Cove.
I see.
So there could be private property, mostly are, where they are being developed by private developers, and there was no regulation on that in Glen Cove. And so the workers' unions came to me and said, can we enact something in Glen Cove?
Right.
And I worked on it. We worked with our attorney, our city attorney, and the attorneys from the labor unions, and we enacted one of the more stringent codes in Long Island for worker safety, so that when developers are developing and before they can get a building permit in Glen Cove, they have to certify that they are complying with the OSHA requirements.
Have you seen a difference in terms of claims, perhaps?
We don't
have comp claims or
I don't
injuries?
have the metrics on that yet.
Okay.
But
what's your overall sense?
It's definitely a positive from the feedback I get from the workers.
Those union leaders who came to you, are they grateful at this point?
Absolutely. They are very, very grateful.
That's great. You've connected seniors with students. You've done a lot of things. This is just one of the many things that you've tackled.
Yeah.
How do you connect seniors with students?
Well, when I got on the city council, I made it a point to ensure that I represent every person, not just the people I know or the people who may have voted for me or people I like, or every single person in Glen Cove, resident, business owner, is my constituent. And it's important for me to serve every single one of them. And so if there are needs in different communities, youth, seniors, veterans community, wherever the need is, I want to ensure that those needs are met as best we can from the city government. So connecting youth with seniors has been, it's really been a very fulfilling. I know you do this here a little bit at the museum, and it
is fulfilling
when
you're dealing with young people and the elderly. And when you put them together, I mean, it's amazing. It's just magic when they get together.
Somebody who's had a lot of experiences, seniors, and sharing them with somebody who has had fewer experiences, the youth, can be an experience where it's very eye-opening, and seeing it through the different lenses. And then they can learn from each other. It's just so special.
Isn't it ironic, though, that young people have grandparents, but for some reason, when it's a stranger,
Right.
they're more open to the wisdom that's imparted to them.
Well, unfortunately, I've lost both my parents and grandparents long ago.
Same.
And so when I step into the senior center, it's like a room full of, surrogate parents and grandparents for me even.
Mm-hmm.
And I love hearing their stories, where they've come from, how they ended up in Glen Cove. Some have lived here their whole lives and stay here, and some, moved here to be closer to family or for whatever reason. And it's everybody's journey is unique and fascinating.
You're really a troubleshooter for Glen Cove. You're finding problems, or at least what you perceive to be issues, and you solve them. What inspired you to launch Women's Month and Gay Pride Month over here in relations to Glen Cove and the community?
Yeah, those are a couple of examples of just ensuring that there's visibility into people who may be different and marginalized because of those differences. And in society, very often that marginalization can hurt people. And all that's needed is a little education and eye-opening, and that can be inspiring to others. And it can bring people together to recognize that, it's a lot of people say it, but not everybody lives it. There's one race, and it's the human race on Earth.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right?
We say that here all the time.
Right?
There are no races. We're all related.
And so whether you are Jewish or not, whether you are gay or not, whether you are a female or not, we all have more in common than different. And so to have those programs for the city of Glen Cove, and where I can bring in, this is an example, bring in seniors and our youth and have them participate and be inspired so that they can help somebody who may be a little different from them, but again, find those commonalities,
right?
And they can be inspired to break through and be part of the positive change rather than part of the problem.
I love that you're thinking and doing what we're doing here. We try to inspire young people to see each other as relatives rather than separate races, because really that's a pseudoscience, this whole racism thing. We all came from the same original mother some 200,000 years ago, and every person you bump into on this planet is somewhere between your 15th and 50th cousin. That's a fact. And so it's always a family reunion. And if people saw it that way, I think there certainly would be a lot less hate. There would be more empathy, because people would realize that it's really me, they are me, and I am them under different circumstances.
Yeah. And I'll say that's something that's even more critical in the political realm.
Yes.
Because it's even more divisive. And it's just, you're on the other side. You're the enemy. When nobody is an enemy, we really, each and every one of us, for the most part, wants to help.
Sure.
But just because you put a name on it, you're the other side, you're the other team. It's like baseball, like Yankees and Red Sox. You hate the other team.
Yeah.
Everybody just wants to have a good game, right?
Absolutely.
Everybody wants to have fun. Everybody wants to help each other.
Well, I see how much you're involved. Like on social media, I see that you're involved with so many different groups and organizations. You're involved with the American Jewish Committee.
Yeah.
And so how does your personal identification impact the way you serve?
Well, it comes back to treating everybody equally and fairly. And it should not be in politics, and unfortunately it is these days. It should not be who you know. It should be what you know, and everybody should have the same treatment. And so that's really what it comes down to. And through the AJC, anti-Semitism is rampant, and more so today than ever in my lifetime in the United States.
Right. What does that say to you?
It's
that there was this undercurrent all along, and it just surfaced, or is it something brand new?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of both. And I think it's been in the past a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
And now it's a little bit more overt.
Out in the open.
But even those subtle things, maybe some of us are more in tune to also.
Like a microaggressive statements.
Yes.
That are more prevalent, for sure. We have to deal with these issues in schools when we're notified by principals and sometimes even the DA's office that there's a couple of students that need to be re-educated about the Holocaust and about hate and words of hate and how it impacts other people.
Yeah. Well, even when I was working with a couple of our rabbis in Glen Cove to set up a Yom HaShoah program for Glen Cove, remembering the Holocaust is not a religious event, but I got pushback saying we cannot do a religious event at City Hall. I said, this is an historical event. It's an anti-hate event. It is not a religious event. And if you're considering this a religious event, then having Santa Claus or Easter egg hunts on city property shouldn't be held either, because that's where that subtle, and not so subtle, but undercurrent of anti-Semitism hit home to me over the last few years. And I said, we have to work even harder to combat it and show the differences, even when people don't even realize that they are treating people differently.
You know, you got to keep a fine balance between the things that you do. I'm sure you're constantly thinking about these things. You're data-driven. I mean, you're known to be data-driven. But you also have to keep in mind the local stories of people, people's lives, right? You have data, and then you have people's stories and their emotions that are involved. How do you balance the two?
You know, it is a balance. And because of my professional background in finance and data analytics, that's kind of how my brain works.
Right.
But I overlay that with the personal aspects, and something that there have been votes on the city council where, yes, it could be a positive financial benefit to the city, but it might hurt certain people or not. Let's just say, for example, there have been some applications for large buildings in Glen Cove. And financially, if those are built and they might pay more taxes into the city, the bottom line may be better for Glen Cove if they actually pay those taxes, right, at the long run. But when you talk about converting a neighborhood of single-family houses and putting up large buildings that maybe shadow somebody, a community's backyards and takes away some of the nature environment of the suburbs, you have to consider those people that are impacted.
Right.
And so, yes, there is data and analytics, but you overlay the personal impacts.
Right.
And you have to balance those two.
So your decisions are based on that balance, that fine balance.
Absolutely.
And so you feel good about your decisions.
Yes.
So the year is 2035. Okay, where is Marsha in 2035, politically and professionally?
Well, I'm really just trying to get through the next day or week or month.
Just, what would you like? Where would you like to be in 2035?
The next big endeavor, I am running for mayor this year in 2025, and if that all goes well, maybe there's further politics, political positions that I go for.
And what is the reason you're running?
So I feel like I've made a difference on the city council, but I feel like I could do so much more as mayor. It's you just have a larger purview of the whole city instead of enacting one legislation here, one thing there, or a few things here. You really have the full view of the city. And I have visions of what Glen Cove can be instead of just kind of operating to keep the lights on, right? Being reactive, something breaks, you can fix it. I want to be proactive. I want to have a vision for Glen Cove where we have a vibrant downtown. we have better quality of life for every single individual, not just some. And, we're looking forward and not just trying to maintain the status quo.
What other areas are keeping you up at night that you'd like to tackle? You've tackled quite a few things.
Yeah.
Well, what else is on your mind?
So the water infrastructure, it's still while it's vastly improved,
right,
there we always have to keep up and maintain it. Mm-hmm. And this is where longer term planning, right? So Glen Cove works on a 1-year operating budget. And I've been asking for years, can we do a 3-year, 5-year plan? So make sure that what we do today
right.
is sustainable into
Very
the
good.
Future.
That's forward thinking.
For the finances, for our infrastructure, and for our people of Glen Cove.
Mm-hmm. Wow. You've done so much, and I know you're going to continue to do so much more. You have a lot of years ahead of you. So impressed. You've been very supportive of the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center right here in Glen Cove. I lived in Glen Cove in the year 1977 when I went to the chiropractic college in Old Westbury. I lived here for 1 year, and I never thought I'd ever be back here. And here I am full-time. And I love it here. It's a great community.
Life works in interesting ways.
It really does.
And it brings you to places for different reasons. And we're lucky to have you. We're lucky to have this center.
Thank you.
It is a blessing that while this is a county-run institution, that it is located in Glen Cove. Right. And
we're definitely impacted.
I feel very...
by what you do in Glen Cove.
Oh,
we
yes.
certainly are. And
yes.
we're very much involved as much as we can be. We're part of the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah.
And I'd like to find more ways and interesting ways to partner up with the
We
locals.
try to help as much as we can. We have our own Glen Cove police so that you don't have to rely on Nassau to get out here if necessary. But, we try to help as much as we can. And we are lucky to have you within our borders of Glen Cove.
Absolutely. What made you move to Glen Cove? How did you end up here?
Yeah, so it's an interesting story.
Yeah.
I lived in Manhattan after college and was dating my now wife who was living in Seacliff. And we decided to get married, and she was looking for a house where we could both move into. And Seacliff, we love Seacliff as well. But the houses are smaller and more expensive, and we ended up saying Glen Cove is very close to Seacliff. And so
and it's got so much to offer.
Yeah, we found a beautiful home and made it our, forever home.
Yeah, and
here
the
in Glen
surrounding
Cove.
Communities are also beautiful, like Locust Valley. You've got arboretums in the area. You have water.
Right. There's so many assets, so many natural assets in Glen Cove. It's really a wonderful place, and the community is very special.
And they're very lucky to have you.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely lucky. You are an incredible human being, and I wish you the very best, and I hope that you continue to have no problems accomplishing what you want to accomplish.
I appreciate that.
At all. So thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. And I want to thank the people that have been eavesdropping in our conversation. Thank you so much for listening in on this conversation with an incredible human being who's done so much, who has visions of doing even more greater things. Thanks so much for joining us on HMTV. I'm your host, Bernie Furshpan, signing off, and we'll see you next time.